Good morning. My name is Dr. Deepika. Today I'll be discussing about a very important concept, that is sources of finance. As we all know, finance is very much important. Finance is the lifeblood of any business. So without finance, no business can survive, and without proper financial management, no business can grow and prosper. So finance plays a very important role. So in this topic we will discuss about different sources of finance. That I have already discussed, finance is the lifeblood of business concern. It is directly linked with all the activity performed by the business concern. Basically, quantum of finance may be depending upon the nature and situation of the business concern, but the requirement of the finance may be broadly classified into two parts. Sources of finance may means the way of mobilizing various items of finance to the industrial concern. Sources of finance states that how the companies are mobilizing finance for their requirement. The company belong to the existing or the new, which needs some amount of finance to meet the long term and short term requirement, such as purchasing of fixed asset, construction of office building, purchase of raw material, and day to day expenses. For every short term and long term requirement, there is a need of finance. Sources of finance may be classified into various category, various head. Long term financial requirement or fixed capital requirement. Financial requirement of the business differ from firm to firm, and the nature of the requirement of the business is on the basis of term or period of financial requirement. It may be long term and short term financial requirement. Long term financial requirement means the finance needed to acquire land and building for financial concern, purchase of plant and machinery, and other fixed expenditure. Long term financial requirement, it is also known as fixed capital requirement. Purpose of long term finance. The main purpose of long term finance is to finance fixed asset, to finance the permanent part of working capital, to finance growth and expansion of business. Next, different sources of long term financing. We have different sources of long term financing, that is, shares, debentures, uh, public deposit, retained earning, term loan from the bank, loan from financial institution. First is shares. Issue of share is the main source of long term finance. Shares are issued by joint stock company to the public. Company divides its capital into units of a definite face value, that is, say for example, rupees 10 each, rupees 100 each. Each unit is called as shares. A person holding share is known as shareholder of a company. Next, equity shares. Equity shares are shares which do not enjoy any preferential right in the matter of payment of dividend or repayment of capital. Equity shareholders get dividend only after the payment of dividend to the preference shareholder. It means first the preference shareholder will get the dividend, and the remaining profit will finally distribute to the equity shareholder. Equity shareholders are the real owner of the company. They have the control over the management of the company. Equity shareholders are eligible to get dividend if the company earn profit. Preference shares. Preference shares are the shares which carry preferential right over the equity shares. These rights are receiving dividend at the fixed rate, number one, getting back the capital in case of company is winding up. Investment in these shares are safe, and preference shareholder also get dividend regularly. Next, Creditorship security. Creditorship security is also known as debt finance, which means the finance is mobilized from the creditors. Debentures and bonds are the two major part of creditorship security. Debenture. A debenture is a document issued by the company. It is certificate issued by the company under its seal acknowledging a debt. According to the Company Act 1956, debenture includes debenture stock, bonds, and any other security of the company, whether consisting a charge of the asset of a company or not. Debenture. Whenever a company wants to borrow a large amount of fund for loan but fixed period, it can borrow from a general public by issuing loan certificate called debenture. These are offered to the public to subscribe in the same manner as is done in case of shares. Debenture is issued under the common seal of the company. It is written acknowledgement of the money borrowed. It is specified the term and conditions such as rate of interest, time repayment, security offered, etc. Type of debenture. Uh, Debenture is classified into redeemable debenture, irredeemable debenture, convertible debenture, non-convertible debenture. Next is retain earning, that is internal source of finance. Like an individual, company also set aside a part of their profit to meet future requirement of the company. And future requirement, the company put aside some finance, that is known as internal retain earning. The portion of the profit which is not distributed among the shareholders but is retained and is issued in business is known as retained earning. As per Indian Company Act, companies are required to transfer a part of their profit in reserve. The amount so kept in reserve may be used to buy fixed asset. It is known as internal financing. Next, public deposit. It is very old source of financing in India. When modern bank were not there, people used to deposit their saving with businesses concern of good repute. Even today, it is very popular and convenient method of raising medium-term finance. The period for which business undertaking accept public deposit range between 6 months to 3 years. Any member of the public can fill up the prescribed form and deposit the money with the company. The company in return issue a deposit receipt, which this receipt is an acknowledgement of debt by the company. The term and condition of the deposit are printed on the back of the receipt. Next, borrowing from the commercial bank. Traditionally, commercial bank in India do not grant long-term loan. They grant loan only for short period, not exceeding 1 year. But recently, they have started giving loan for long period. Commercial bank give term loans that is more than 1 year. Commercial bank give loan to organization in either cash credit, overdraft, term loan, purchase discounting of bill or issue of letter of credit. Banks help enterprises by providing loan to produce goods and contribute towards industrial growth and generate employment opportunity. Financial institution. Economic development of any country depending on the growth of the business sector. The well developed financial system helps the business to achieve growth by making fund available to them, for which the government has established financial institutions all over the country to provide finance to the business. Special financial institution, that is Industrial Finance Corporation of India, IFCI, State Financial Corporation, SFC, Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India, ICICI. Next, Other than short term financing, long term financing, there are short term financing requirement or working capital requirement. Apart from the capital expenditure of the firm should need certain expenditure like procurement of raw material, payment of wages, day to day expenditure, etc. This kind of expenditure is to meet with the help of short term financing requirement, which will meet the operational expenditure of the firm. Short term financial requirements are popularly known as working capital. Different short term sources are bank credit, customer advantage, trade credit, factoring, public deposit, money market instrument. First is trade credit. Trade credit refers to the credit extended by the supplier of goods or services to his or her customer in the normal course of business. Trade credit occupies a very important position in short term sources financing due to competition. Almost all the traders and manufacturers are required to extend credit facilities, without which there is no possibility of staying back in the business. Trade credit is a spontaneous source of finance that arises in a normal business transaction of the firm without specific negotiation. In order to get these sources of finance, the buyer should have acceptable and dependable creditworthiness and reputation in the market. Next is factoring. Cash lubricates the wheel of trade, business, and industry. Cash flow is necessary to meet the commitment, statutories or otherwise, but unfortunately for the seller of goods and services, credit sale is the order of the day worldwide. Most vulnerable segment are the small and medium sector enterprise. Delayed realization of the sale receivable, working it is a working capital cycle. Poor bookkeeping and collection mechanism along with inadequate and delayed institutional credit hasten their ultimate sickness. Public deposit or term deposit are in the nature of unsecured deposit, have been solicited by the firm from general public primarily for the purpose of financing their working capital requirement. Next is commercial paper. Commercial paper represent a short-term sources unsecured promissory note issued by the firm that have a fairly high credit rating. It was first introduced in USA and it was an important money market instrument. In India, Reserve Bank of India introduced commercial paper on the recommencement of Wagul Working Group on the money market. Commercial paper is the source of short-term source finance to only large firms with sound financial position. Next is capitalization. Capitalization basically refers to valuation of total business. It is the sum total of owned capital and borrowed capital. Thus, it is nothing but a valuation of long term fund invested in the business. It refers to the way in which its long term obligations and distributions between different classes of both owners and creators. So, these are some of the sources of finance, short term sources and long term sources of finance. And we all know without finance, there is no business. We cannot do anything in the business without finance. So, finance is very much important, and these are some of the important sources of finance. Thank you so much.